Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by my fast and furious co-host Tucker Hazel. We're here today to talk about the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass
Oh yeah.
Wave 1
hmm
DLC and its controversies. But before we get into it proper, if you want to tell us your thoughts on Mario Kart or anything else at all, be sure to join our Discord link as usual. Top of the description or down there.
It's never
Like
not.
the video, ring the bell, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment,
Yeah.
hug your mother.
Yeah. You do a lot of supporting of maternal care in these videos, and I want to thank you very much for that.
I think this is only the second time I've ever done it. And it's because I sometimes I start talking faster than my mind goes. And I just have to
Sure.
like keep laying those tracks down as quick as possible.
Yeah. I'm always
But
thinking about your
Tucker,
mom too.
speaking of tracks,
Yeah.
Mario Kart DLC first wave is out. I
hmm
have played a lot of it. We
hmm
actually played some together,
Yeah, we did.
a rare occurrence
Very rare.
in the proverbial BLB household.
hmm
Um, what are your kind of what are your thoughts on the matter? You like the DLC?
Yeah, I had a good time playing through it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me as someone who comes into this as the lightest possible Mario Kart fan you can be. I've played a good amount of Mario Kart in my life. I've played a good number of the games in this series, but I don't consider myself a racing game fan in general. Just the idea of going around the tracks in a loop doesn't particularly appeal to me. Though I would say that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is probably my favorite racing game, just because it is a very quality game on the whole. But I was not expecting or excited for DLC, though, and there is a video that attests to this. I was surprised and kind of excited that there was going to be so many courses coming. This is a 48 course pass deal over the course of two
Double
years. Yeah,
double the content.
yes, exactly. So to that end, I'm very excited to see where this ends up. Though I think after playing through the first two cups here with the 8 tracks total, I don't know if I'm gonna really consistently tune in to play the tracks as they're coming out. It's just something that'll, if I happen to be playing Mario Kart after some new tracks are released going forward, I'll try them out. Because as I want to get into, it is actually surprisingly entertaining for me to try new tracks, although I've played a couple of them before and experienced them for the first time. But on the whole, it's like, yeah, it's more. And the controversy is what I really want to get to because I think
Yeah,
that's where the real meat and potatoes lie. But
yeah.
as someone who's not a Mario Kart fan, the tracks are fine. I had fun playing on them once. I'll probably have fun on playing on them like two or three more times, and then they'll just become background noise, as Mario Kart does to me.
Sure, yeah. Erroneous as an opinion may be, I think that's very much valid.
Yeah.
Um, and we will spend most of this discussion talking about sort of the meta narrative that is formed around the booster course pass. But to give my thoughts in short, I think these tracks are great. I think that the tour tracks in general,
hmm
with their sort of like morphing design
Yeah.
between laps or particularly hideaways, incredibly complex interwoven design. Like
Yeah.
I really think these push Mario Kart's track design to a new level.
Absolutely.
And the returning tracks I think are fun. They are simpler
Yeah.
by
Very
design,
much. Yeah.
but they're still engaging. I think Shroom Ridge in particular is a lot of fun.
hmm
So I'm having a good time. My girlfriend and I play a lot of Mario Kart, so it was nice to get a little bit more new blood into the game.
Yeah.
But at this point, in probably 4 hours of gameplay, I would say on the DLC courses.
hmm
I mean, we played in first in 100cc just to get a feel for them, but now we've got gold stars in 150, in mirror, in 200.
Holy
So
shit!
we're basically
Congratulations.
done.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing where like the wave structure I don't necessarily would have been a problem for me if we'd either gotten 4 cups at a time
hmm
or the other option is if each of these two cup waves were accompanied by new characters, new items, but I would think most importantly, new cart pieces to unlock, because then
Sure.
you would have sort of a persistent reason to return to the familiar tracks,
Yeah.
and be grinding towards that next unlockable, whether it's a character or a cart piece, or of course just adding a new item from tour into that fray would make all of the tracks more engaging to go back and revisit.
Yeah.
So I just think that there would have been ways to make this feel more substantive,
hmm
because when all 48 tracks are out, I mean,
It's
it's gonna,
substantive. Yeah.
yeah, it is. But in the moment, I think there were ways to put the Mario Kart hooks deeper back into me,
Absolutely.
opposed to just 8 new tracks at a time, which I think are great. But
Yeah.
I need a little bit more to that framework. I think if we're going to actually make Mario Kart a staple multiplayer game again in the larger ecosystem.
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree on the whole. I think that that would be more interesting. And it kind of paints this release of this whole Booster Pass DLC in kind of a strange light. Is like, yeah, it's a lot, but it's a lot over the course of 2 years. And if you're playing it as it comes out, it doesn't really feel like a lot. And we don't even know what the actual rollout is going to be pacing wise. I mean, we can assume every 3 months or something like that we'll get a new one.
I think every other month makes sense for them all to be released by the end of next year. I believe.
Okay, all right. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how that if that math works out, but it's close enough to where
Yes.
you're
Yes.
probably about
Yeah.
right. Yeah, every 2 or 3 months. But it's interesting because for me, having anything new Mario Kart at all, I feel like, and I feel like this is probably Nintendo's thought process as well, is enough to reinvigorate Mario Kart and to make it be something people are talking about again. This game doesn't need to do better because it already did the
Right.
best out of any racing game ever and of any Switch game and of almost any Nintendo game. So I think what they're doing here is just giving a light smattering in order to keep it relevant and keep people lightly interested, but I don't think they really feel the need to put a ton of effort into this, as we'll get into the fact that there's more characters, more items,
Yeah.
new cart parts, all that. They're like, hey, this is enough. This will keep you interested. Over time, it will grow and be very substantive. And I think that's a pretty valid way to approach it because, frankly, this is unnecessary. These tracks are not necessary. This game already
Right.
sold. We kind of wanted a Mario Kart 9 coming out because it's been a decade since this game came out.
Right.
But in terms of DLC on a game that is this old and this successful, and from both those angles, kind of unnecessary, I think this is good. I'm happy with this. I'm satisfied, and
Yes.
more would have been nice, but I don't necessarily think it's a particular detriment.
Yeah. So first, I will say I had it in my head that all 6 waves are out by the end of March 2023. Well, a year
The
from when it
end
starts,
of
but that's not
2023.
true.
Yeah.
It's the end of 2023, so you're probably right with that. Every 3 months
Mhm.
cadence, and I agree. I am also happy. I think personally, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is, in my opinion, Nintendo's best local multiplayer game.
Yeah.
And so just having
I'd say I
more,
probably agree with that. Maybe Smash
yeah,
Ultimate notwithstanding, but
yeah,
those two have kind of their own echelon anyway.
yes, they're the ones in direct competition, I think, for that number one spot. So for me, just more Mario Kart is very exciting. But
Yeah.
it's a sort of thing where I think the point still gets across if all 48 tracks released in June, or we had 3 major DLC drops, and then this holiday was the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe release on Kart.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I think
Which
you
is
could have
probably coming next year.
right. It just feels like there's too much time here.
Oh yeah, I agree.
But nonetheless, the tracks I think are all very fun.
Mhm.
I'm having a great time with them. But do they look good? And this is really, I think, the core of the discussion.
The core of the discussion is: do they look good, and does that matter?
Yes, because there have been, I would say, several prominent circulated tweets online comparing the fidelity of the booster course tracks to that of the base game, and people basically saying that these tracks are lazy, or that they are, not good enough quality wise to be in Mario Kart 8. And what do you think?
Frankly, I disagree. I think that these tracks, playing on them, if you really stop and like, hey, I can see the corner on this polygon, at that point, it's maybe they're worse, but also Nintendo never really claimed that these were going to be incredibly detailed, and I think from the just experience of driving through them and how your weapons and your drifting and stuff works on them, they're perfectly sized. I think the lighting engine spruces them up and like fantastically. There is more detail added to all of these. I don't think the texture work is egregious, and frankly, as I think we'll get into, I prefer the cartoony aesthetic in some ways, and I think, and I I'm curious if that is going to be something that they trend towards for future titles, instead of Mario Kart 8, and I guess to some extent like 7 and Wii trending towards more like direct realism in the texture work
Yeah.
of metal and roads and things like that. Having it be more flashy and cartoony is fine with me, and I actually think they look very good. And having variety, I think, is actually important. The fact that we're getting now this game has a mixture of art styles, I think, is very cool.
I have to say, I think that the mixture of art styles is maybe my issue with it.
Okay,
If I had to pick one up, because I
sure.
think that the strength of Mario Kart 8 visually was its cohesion. I
Yeah, of
think
course.
it is probably the most beautiful game Nintendo's ever released. I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
the fucking lighting engine and texture work and detail in those tracks goes
Great.
so hard for no reason. But I also have to say, and it wasn't until I played, as I was telling you this when you're actually playing, it wasn't until these courses actually released that I kind of clicked something in my mind. Ever
Mhm.
since 2014, I thought that this game, while beautiful, looked kind
Technically
of
impressive.
soulless.
Yeah.
Yes, technically impressive, but sort of from an art direction standpoint, a little bit soulless in comparison to the other games.
Yeah.
And I think it was for me because this is like a much more subdued version of the brawl thing of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we can make the game look real, quote unquote realistic, so we're going to.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's not Mario and fucking denim like he
Yeah.
is in Smash Brothers, but it's trending in that
Well, I mean, it is
direction.
Mario in denim. He wears denim. He's always
That's true.
worn denim.
Or yeah, you know what I mean though. It's a sort of thing where like I think we leaned a little bit too far in the realism direction, and those color palettes are muted.
Hmm.
They're beautiful, but the game's kind of muted.
Hmm.
And
To a
I've
certain
always,
degree.
to a certain degree.
Not egregiously so, certainly.
No,
But
definitely not. But when you compare it to like Double Dash,
mhm.
it definitely is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the Double Dash Tour aesthetic is the best Mario Kart aesthetic.
Yeah.
And for me, that is what this DLC feels like. It feels like an HD return to pretty much the pre-8 style.
Yeah.
As you were saying, we trends that way a little bit,
Yeah,
7 more so,
Wii
but 8
games on
definitely.
the whole try
Yeah,
to do something kind of realistic, and on the whole, it doesn't work.
yeah.
The games that go away from that art style on the Wii are the ones where it really shines. But I actually always found Mario Kart Wii, and then by I guess extension 7 to a certain degree, to not be very visually appealing. I mean, they look fine and they get the job done, but that art style and that sort of toned down color palette and focusing more on, Yoshi's a darker green and the sand is like a darker sand. Like they don't put as much pop into them, and I don't care that much because I'm not a Mario Kart fan, and I don't
Right.
spend a lot of time thinking about Mario Kart Wii because I haven't played that game since I was fucking 10. But the fact is that I prefer the what's the one with the big floaty toad on the DLC?
Oh, Toad Circuit.
Toad Circuit. Yeah, I think that one, from a color palette perspective, maybe not from a technical perspective, is
Yeah.
my favorite visually in terms of the bright green of the grass and that big yellow floating toad and all that stuff. Like, that really pops to me and screams energy and fun. And I don't dislike the base game for its
Yeah.
aesthetic necessarily, but that's where my preferences lie.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's very technically impressive what Mario Kart did, but
Yeah.
I think I've always preferred this sort of the general GameCube aesthetic, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's what this feels like. Now, where I think it's iffy is in the actual technical composition of these tracks.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you have to get really close to notice when stuff is wrong.
Yeah.
Paris Promenade is a great example. If you stop and really look at shit in the background of Paris Promenade, it is completely the wrong size.
Sure.
But you are, unless you are doing as a lot of these people on Twitter are, going into time trials and just puttering in the wrong direction
Yeah.
as far off the course as you can to notice these things, they are non-issues entirely.
Yeah.
However, I think that the one big exception is Toad Circuit for a
Mm-hmm.
number of reasons. There's clear jagged polygonal geometry here,
Mm-hmm.
which is completely unlike everything else. There's not that sort of clean textured sheen that's on a lot of the other tracks.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stands as you're going around the new lap,
Yeah.
they are not only cutouts, they are cutouts moving like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just don't understand
But
necessarily
more like this.
why. Great point. I just don't understand why. I don't play Mario Kart Tour, so I don't know how many of these tracks were in Tour. I'm going to assume most, not all of them. but it would seem to me like maybe this one wasn't because this to me really does feel like an just upscaled 3DS assets.
Yeah, I don't. I guess I kind of assumed that Tour was only its original tracks.
It is not. I know that for
Okay,
a fact. Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me, but it
yeah,
doesn't. Whatever.
yeah. It just feels like that's a weird outlier.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think that the quote unquote budget feeling people are talking about does pervade the track designs in ways that aren't aesthetic.
Hmm.
So I don't really think that the anti-gravity mechanic is much of anything in Mario Kart 8
I agree.
personally.
Yeah,
Um,
it's honestly it. I've always felt this
yeah,
about that is it sounds so cool
yeah,
conceptually, and it does actually do really interesting things for the physical design of the track
yes,
around you, but it never impacts your driving on the track in any particularly meaningful way. I enjoy bouncing off of people or spinning off the little
yeah.
wheels sometimes, but that's about it, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it does change your physics with the ability to get speed boosts off of other racers and you're a
Yeah,
little bit floatier. But for the most part, it is the sort of thing of, oh, we're going to go up the wall here, right?
yeah,
And so my girlfriend Jean, who's not only the biggest Mario Kart fan I know, but also the biggest Toad fan I know, drew, I think, a very apt comparison here. If you're on Toad Highway, the N64 track in the
yeah,
base game,
yeah,
which is an N64 track, oh, I just said that. You can drive an anti-gravity up the wall,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There
Hmm.
was a much more thoughtful level of a modern redesign to the retro
Absolutely.
tracks
Hmm.
that is not here. Like on Shroom Ridge, there are opportunities where if there had been a little bit more modernization put into the track design, you could very easily get up onto the wall and drive there
Hmm.
and to
Yeah,
add
yeah.
another dynamic element. That's where I think the budget, if anywhere, the quote unquote budget feeling of the track design ends up
Hmm.
hurting the experience.
Yeah, I agree that that's where the budget feels the most apparent because, as
Yeah,
I said, I don't think the tracks look bad at all, frankly,
right.
except for incredibly specific circumstances, and we'll see how that pervades or maybe it gets better or worse in future DLC drops.
Yeah,
But I actually don't necessarily think it's inherently a bad thing that these tracks aren't completely redesigned for eight's
yeah,
mechanics or even the mechanics of seven, adding the paraglider underwater and stuff like that. Because they were never sold as that. These are remasters of old tracks. It's the layouts
yeah,
of those tracks. I mean, there will be new details added. There will be a slight things changed, but these aren't the 8 versions of old tracks that we have in the base game. These are 48 tracks from across the Mario Kart series. They're as you remember them, but now you can play them with Mario Kart 8's items and purple
yeah.
sparks and sometimes gliding and stuff. Actually, there are a few things added. Maybe I'm misremembering.
There's a lot of gliding added to a lot of these
Um,
courses. Yeah,
but the fact that they aren't completely redesigned is okay with me and I think that is because of the huge number of them. I don't think it's really technically feasible to ask them to redesign them all for. I mean, it is because they've been working on this for
That's
5 years.
thing. Yeah,
But for me, having some that don't have gliding and stuff. I mean, I don't really care about gliding. I don't really care about underwater. I don't really care
yeah,
about the gravity. It's just more tracks to work your way through, and they are complete Mario Kart tracks. Like they're not lacking in terms of how fun they
right.
are to play on. They're just not fully modernized. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think all these tracks are quite fun, but I do think that it is totally fair to expect Nintendo to have put more into them.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I should have said that. I bet. I'll take
Because
that back.
I mean, not only is this Nintendo with a lot of resources, this is a game that has sold between Wii U and Switch 50 million plus copies.
Yeah,
Like we've got room to maneuver
no,
and put a
of
little bit
course.
more into these tracks, even if the booster course pass had cost $30.
Hmm.
Charge everyone extra fiver to make the tracks a little bit more modern, not aesthetically, but mechanically to the standard of the other retro tracks.
Sure.
I think that would have been a fair ask,
Hmm.
but again, it all comes down to this sort of hyper focus that is being put on it by the wave structure. I think
Yeah.
I really think that the people who are saying, "Oh, if you get really close to this flower in Paris Promenade, it looks wrong," wouldn't be doing that if there were 48 tracks here,
Yeah.
at once. I think I take issue mostly with the rollout model
Sure.
because while I would like the tracks to be a little bit more modern, they are incredibly fun.
Yeah.
The aesthetics
It
and a lot of these
it's
track
just that they're
designs,
just as fun to play on as
yeah,
the ones in the base game.
they return to a older, more classical super hyper arcadey Mario Kart experience, which I
Yeah.
love, and I think that's exactly what we get out of this. So I'm excited. I just wish that there had either been more
Mm-hmm.
meta elements to the waves, or that the waves were fewer and deeper in
Larger.
terms of
Yeah.
content. But
I
I'm
I,
happy with
I
it.
absolutely agree. But
Yeah,
yeah, at the end of the day, I had just as much of a fun time playing on this as I expected to,
yeah,
and I'll have just as much of a fun time not playing the other ones as they come out.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, this is one of my probably top 10 favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
So more content in that is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like it's been 8 years since eight first came out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that contextualizes things. Anything else to add, Tucker?
Nintendo
Number
fans,
one Mario
stop
Kart
fucking
fan?
whining. I don't personally, and maybe I'm just stirring up some fucking feathers here. I don't think it's bootlicking to say, hey, these are fun tracks. Like, I had fun playing on them, so it's okay that they're the way they are. I think there's way too much vitriol around a DLC drop that at the end of the day is certainly worth the money, and it is certainly entertaining to play through. Just because they aren't the realistic texture style of 8 doesn't mean they're bad. And that's been something that's been really pissing me off, seeing that on Twitter all over and over again. It's like, you can't enjoy this, you can't play this, you're letting Nintendo get away with stuff. It's like, they're giving me a lot of entertainment value for little money, and they're fun to play on. If the game is fun, if the game wasn't fun, why bother? You know, fucking Reggie, I don't know. But, like, the, the vitriol has been really pissing me off, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to leave it on because I agree with you. I will say, which I thought was fucking hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody posted that that they like the way the tracks look, and somebody in the replies had made a Tomodachi Life diss track on them. And it was because if people don't know, in Tomodachi Life, you can like orchestrate a musical with me. So they had
Uh-huh.
they wrote a song for their Mii's to shit on the original poster for liking the new Mario Kart tracks and calling them a shill and a bootlicker and saying that like, that's exactly what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Then so here's my new rule.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You can be a dickhead online if you do it through a Tomodachi
Tomodachi
Life
Life.
song.
Yep.
But I agree with you on the whole. I think that Nintendo can both be taken, quote unquote, taken to task for the Mario Kart stuff without eliminating any nuance or context from the argument, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think these tracks are a lot of fun, but they could have been better.
Yeah, of course.
And that's a conversation we'll have again with Wave 2 and Wave 3 and Wave 4 and Wave 5 and Wave
Jesus Christ,
6.
we are going to go through this conversation like socially in terms of Twitter
Yes.
every time that this fucking tracks come out. This is not the end of this, and you will be hearing it for the next 2 years. Look forward to it.
I don't know if it's my end or not, but you seem a little bit quiet to me.
Well, I turned down my gain because it was peaking.
Okay, you sound better now. Maybe you're just far away. Who knows?
I was back here.
Yeah.
I was eating a fucking cheese doodle, as you called it.
Lord willing, you won't be that far away from me anymore.
Never again, sweet baby thing. All right, who's fucking monkeying about in the hallway? I hear him chattering and battering.
Who knows?
Is that Jeffrey Wright?
Probably not.
It could be though. You ever think about that?
Sounds a little bit effeminate to be Jeffrey Wright, but
Maybe he changed his voice. Voice lesson.
Jeffrey wrong.
Nope.
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 Do you want to do the intro? You want me to?
This looks like a bed bug, which is not a good sign.